I think there's so many misconceptions about mediumship. I think of what I do and the experiences that I share with people as being almost creative, subjective experiences where we create kind of a sacred place where time and space align, and there's an opportunity for randomness that works through me to come through and have something resonate in a person's life that I happen to be meeting.
Somebody gonna cue me, or do I cue myself?
Cue yourself.
Okay. Hey everyone, we're back with another episode of Let's Talk Off Camera, so let's get talking. You know it's a big show. This show has heft to it when our talent booker from Live with Mark and Kelly, Kelly Burkhardt, is here in the house.
Major.
Major. This is your second time sitting here at the podcast table. We are going to be joined by world-renowned medium, Tyler Henry. I'm always curious about the phrase medium. Yeah. A medium. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's an extra, not a medium. It's extra ability, not a medium. Right. You know him from his best-selling books, of course, his national tours, his TV show like E's Hollywood Medium, and the Netflix series Life After Death. Now Tyler has returned to Netflix with the show Live from the Other Side, which I think is what our show should be called, where he invites celebrity guests to sit down with him during a live broadcast, and he tries to help them find closure with lost loved ones. This is going to be an interesting one, but while we wait for Tyler to join, I want to know how Albert and Jan are. Is there somebody that you're hoping comes through? Albert, are you hoping to talk to your dad?
I just want to say that, there are levels which I've seen Jan Chalet go to get people to do things, and it's usually pretty extreme. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. I sent Jan to get the cat that was trapped in a building in Lower Manhattan in, 2006? And Jan, I'm not kidding, I got a phone call. I still had a Motorola flip phone, and Jan's like, I got the fucking cat. She's like, I elbowed that woman from the Today Show out of the way, and I got the cat. Like, we're interviewing it. Like, it was the get of the century, a cat that was trapped in a building.
Well, what Jan has produced today and what has made happen and convinced people to bring into your home today is really the next level.
Convinced is a strong word.
Is really the next level.
Strong word, convinced.
Well, go ahead.
Coerced? Do you prefer coerced?
Here's what happened.
Okay.
Tyler is open to doing a reading with us today. Okay.
Can he do a reading over Skype?
Yes, he can. And I said, I see on your show that people bring mementos and you hold them. Like, does that need to happen? Like, do we need to send something to you? And they said, no, as long as you have, if you want, it's not necessary, but if you want, you can have them yourself. So I call Albert and I said, listen, I'm going to let Kelly know about this, but I know your father passed away. If you'd like to have something of his here. And Albert says, does it have to be my father? Okay. So follow through. What was the rest of it?
In my Aunt Pat, who you know very well, may she rest in peace.
May she rest in peace.
Aunt Pat.
By the way, this is half of Albert's family. Every time we mention anyone, we're like, may she rest in peace. May he rest in peace.
Aunt Pat had a beloved dog, Berenger, named after Tom Berenger, because she was obsessed with Tom Berenger. And now, upon going through all of her things, and my sister is clearing out my mother's house, found Berenger's ashes. So I said to her, give them to me and I'll try to figure out where she would want them spread. So Jan said, bring something. I said, do you think if I brought the ashes that he might be able to connect with Aunt Pat, who might say.
So you want to talk to the cockadoodle or whatever. I'm sure if it's in your family, it was some kind of doodle.
Wait, show her the bag.
Yep. Know what the bag it came in.
Berenger. Okay, what I'm looking at, I got to describe this. Oh my God, what kind of a dog is that? That looks like a devil dog. What kind of a dog is Berenger?
He was a terrier. He was a Manchester Terrier.
A Manchester Terrier and a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Okay. And I want to explain the box to people. His ashes are in an engraved wooden box. held together by
I added the rubber bands
by a
because
gold
I was
lock
too
and rubber
afraid
bands, and
that
it's
the thing was
and then
gonna
there's a
pop
gold
open.
He was afraid it was going to pop open. It would be all over Mark's
a
carpet.
golden tag that says Behringer on it. This is actually lovely. I would like my ashes to go in here with Behringer.
So then Albert calls me and he's like, wait.
So then I have to ask my sister for this and explain why I need it. And then my sister hands me this and then also hands me this.
So
And this, and she
is
says,
that Ron?
She says, that's Dad's glass eye. She said, wait, hold on. She said, hold on, wait, I'm not done. She says, that's Dad's glass eye. If you connect with the guy, tell him that this eye last saw where the title was to the Lexus and we can't find it.
We need to know where to bury the ashes and where the Lexus title is.
Where the Lexus title is.
Okay.
So then today at the office,
if we can't laugh about the dead, then the terrorists have won.
So then at the office today, I'm telling Kelly Burkhart this story, and Kelly's like, "Well, Mark's in my closet."
Mark's
So you-
in a cooler.
Okay, and this is the cooler, Caribbean
He's been
Joe
in the
cooler.
cooler
Okay.
since it happened that Al set up.
So you keep him on ice.
He's in the cooler bag. I haven't opened it.
You never open the cooler bag.
Nope.
been in
It's
the
a
closet.
box. There's a box in
Is it
there.
a box bigger than Behringer's?
We can open it.
Are we gonna open it?
We can open
Let's
it.
open it and find out. Let's see Mark. I haven't seen Mark in a while.
Mark's excited.
I've
though.
missed
I'm
him.
sure that
Mark's
he's here.
excited.
You know Mark
Mark
would be
is
excited to
excited.
be here.
Mark
for this.
would love this, by the way. Mark would love this.
Well, there's a bag.
By the
Mark
way,
is Kelly's former husband.
Very
Marcus
heavy. Very heavy.
I had the...
It's not like a Behringer box. It's a head.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, this is heavier than he was when he was alive.
Al sent the whole.
Jeez.
Yeah, we,
So
Al,
we
you make this
messengered
happen?
those
He
to
was
her,
messengered.
yes, back in the day.
Okay.
He was messenger to put
You
in
want
the
to take it
cooler.
out?
Yeah, let's take it out. This
A
seems
cooler?
very clinical.
So Jan,
This is like a
I
scene
don't
from
know.
Jaws.
I don't know if that's loose in there.
This is
I
that
don't
scene
know
from
what's
Jaws.
in there.
I don't want you
I don't
opening up that shark and seeing the Kittner boys spill out all over the dock.
What if it's loose? What if it's like flies into your mouth?
It's not loose.
Is this the sickest thing ever?
I might need a cigarette.
No, you're not going to smoke. Oh, look, it's in another
Oh.
book. Mark Stephen Moses.
Fred.
Here's your certificate of authenticity.
That'd be so
you.
funny.
Fred Sanchez.
Fred Sanchez. August 8th. Okay, so he was cremated on August 8th.
Hold on.
Like, I mean,
So Mark is here with us.
Mark is here. Hey, Mark.
Yep. Oh, is he? Is he
He's so
loving it right
Loving
now?
it.
Oh.
You know, I don't mind telling you what is so strange about this. This is like
It looks
a
like-
coffin-shaped.
Oh my God! It is.
It's like a
Oh my
coffin-shaped
God.
box.
You
So
never
I'm
opened this,
assuming
Kelly.
that
Don't
I wouldn't
open
go.
it anymore.
I would
I'm
open
I'm
more
too
than that. I
afraid.
think you've reached.
I'm
just
just
gonna
gonna go
open
everywhere.
anymore.
I think you reached all the levels.
I don't
of
even
what-
know how we get him out of here. Oh, Mark, how have you been? So, just so you know, Mark and Kelly were, as a
Oh,
couple,
right.
the other Mark and Kelly's favorite people. We love them very much. You know, so I feel like the gang's back together. Although my Mark's not here, I don't know where he is. But this is nice to have him here. It's very nice.
It is.
It is. I feel like comforted that he's here.
It's
Me too.
definitely been a long
Marky do.
range trip. Marky do.
So you've never opened this?
Jen was like, "What do you mean you have him in a cooler bag in your closet?" I'm like,
A Caribbean Joe cooler bag.
I don't even know.
He always liked the Caribbean,
Yeah.
so that's nice.
True.
Like I'm like knocking on it.
And then Burkhart was like, I also have Milo, her dog, in the closet. And I said,
In a box.
I
Is
said,
Milo
I
here?
said we can't
Milo
have
didn't
competing
come.
dogs.
Yeah. Jen goes, no
multiple
competing
dogs.
dogs.
We've got a
We got one
glass
dog
eye.
already.
No competing dogs.
If this kid doesn't hang up on us, it'll be a miracle. So we're gonna talk to your dad's eye.
to find out where the title
Find
to the
out where the
Lexus
title
is.
to the Lexus is. We're gonna find out where Behringer wants
Where
his
Pat
ash.
wants Behringer's ashes to be spread.
Well, shouldn't we just ask Behringer? Maybe.
Oh, we could ask Behringer too.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
true.
I don't know. We're gonna find out.
I was
What
just
are we
bringing
gonna
what do we
find
wanna
out?
know
on a
about
road trip.
Mark?
I had no questions.
Mark's
I'm like,
just
I'll
going
bring
on a-
Mark out. He hasn't been out.
Do you have any
of the
questions
Been
cooler
out in
bag.
a while.
He hasn't
Oh,
been
Mark.
out ever.
So, do you believe in psychic mediums?
Kinda.
Do you believe in psychic?
So here's the thing. I would have always told you no. But something really crazy happened because right after Glenn's father died, Kelly Burkhart invited Glenn to the show when John Edward was on. And I didn't even know Glenn was going to be there. John Edward didn't know. Like, this was just like a random, like, hey, come on over. And she shoved him in a room with him. And the stuff that John said to Glenn about his dad was accurate to the point that it was terrifying. Like, it was, Glenn had been in his dad's closet the day before looking at ties and looking for a tallis. And he said, I saw you looking through the ties. The tallis is on the bottom shelf. Like, that specific. It was wild. Okay. It was bonkers.
It's crazy when they're accurate. They're really accurate.
It was accurate on a whole level, just talking about his mom and what he's left to deal with. I mean, just stuff that nobody would know. Like,
no one could know.
No one could know.
No one would know that.
I don't know what to make of stuff like that. And you've had
so
many experiences, right?
My entire, I don't want to say I have the ability because I don't think I do, but it's a famous story. When I was a kid, we were leaving to go to Disney World. We were driving to Florida. It was the big family trip. And I turned to my grandmother and I said, please don't die. I'm afraid you're going to die. My grandmother was young. Like, these were young people. They were not like death age at all. And my mom got so pissed that I said that. The entire ride to Disney World, as told to me, I have very fragmented memories of this, but as told to me from my parents, was that I cried the entire time saying, we have to turn around. Grandma's going to die. We have to turn around. We go to Disney World. We're in the happiest place on earth. We are in the most magical place on earth. And I am begging my parents to leave because I'm like, we have to get home now. Grandma's going to die. And my mom would like call her at night from the hotel and let her speak to me. And I'd be like, please don't die before we get home. And like my mom would like get really enraged with me because I don't know, I think I was scaring her, freaking her out, or my mom was embarrassed that I was talking this way. And sure enough, my parents wound up cutting the trip short because I was such a pain in the ass and they couldn't stand it anymore. So we left early. We came home early. And when we're pulling down the street and I'm like inconsolable. And as we pull into the driveway, my grandfather is standing on the porch of the house and he's like, do not come in here. And I was like, he's gone. We didn't make it. And it was just a crazy thing. And then the same grandmother, when my first time ever co-hosting with Regis, I was not like a known person. Nobody had known this story yet, so it wasn't out there yet. It wasn't like something I ever talked about. There's no way. There was no Google back then.
Right.
And Shar Margolis came on the show and came out. I was pregnant. Nobody knew I was pregnant. Shar Margolis came out and said, your grandmother's here. And at first she said her name starts with a D, which her name was Esther, but her last name was DiProtoro. And all of her friends called her D.
Wow.
That was her maiden name, DiProtoro. So they never called her Esther. It was always D. So I sort of fumfed and I go, no, it wasn't D. And she goes, is it Ethel? Is it Esther? And I was like, yes. And she's like, she's here and she's showing me, she's telling me you're pregnant. She's doing this with her arms. Are you pregnant? And at the time I was like, I did not look pregnant.
No, I remember this very well.
I did not look.
We were there.
It was a wild experience. Shocking. So and again, it was like not something that I would like.
You were like, we didn't even tell our bosses.
No, we didn't tell anybody.
Right.
We told no one. We didn't tell our parents. Nobody knew. Our parents didn't know. It was so early. And then they're like, do I lie to a psychic? Is that cursing something? But I didn't, you never tell anybody before you have to tell them. As you know, you don't want to jinx anything. And so it was wild because if I was so unconcerned with the reading. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. They were like, will you let a psychic give you a reading? I was like, okay. You know what I mean? I was like, okay.
It's live TV. Like,
I wonder if so, and you should definitely ask him this, but like, when he's doing, you know how like every time they speak, through someone, it's like all positive and reassuring. Like, does he ever get like nasty things that he filters out because he doesn't want to hurt the person's feelings? Like, I'm curious. Like, does anyone ever say anything like that's not not good? All right. Well, he's ready.
He is.
So yeah, let's get this thing going.
Hi, Tyler. How are you?
Good, how are you?
It's so great to talk to you, to meet with you. This is such an honor for us.
Likewise, I'm so excited when I heard this was on the books, and I barely slept last night.
Yeah, us too. So I'm here with my producers. We've got a lot of people. It's so interesting when we were telling everyone that you were going to be on the show. We had a lot of like requests for people that suddenly wanted to cram into my son's former bedroom, which is now a podcast studio, and come in and see if you could conjure up the people, the loved ones. So before you logged on, I was talking to Jan and Albert. Albert, say hello. Jan, say hello.
Hi, Tyler.
Hi, Tyler.
Okay.
Hello.
Now, we were talking about, we've all had sort of unique and interesting medium experiences, which I don't like the term medium. I feel like the term should be extra, not medium, because I feel like you have extra stuff. You have extra abilities. Medium seems like doesn't seem like the right word.
Yeah, you're just kind of subpar, kind of in the middle, right?
What do you say to people that don't believe in this sort of thing, that think it's some sort of trick, or that you somehow have rigged it in some way?
I think there's so many misconceptions about mediumship that's one of the first things I kind of have to assert. I really embrace critical thinking and skepticism and encourage that. I think of what I do and the experiences that I share with people as being almost creative, subjective experiences where we create kind of a sacred place where time and space align, and there's an opportunity for randomness that works through me to come through and have something resonate in a person's life that I happen to be meeting. When we talk about what is quantifiable, I really think of these readings as more qualitative, kind of like how you would appreciate a piece of art. But in the same way that, one person might look at an art piece and go, oh, I love that. Another person might go, I could do that myself. The same can kind of be said for readings sometimes.
So when did this start for you? When did you you're 28 years old now, correct?
Yes.
When did you know you had this ability? Were you just like a small wee child?
Just but a munchkin.
Yeah.
No, I was 10 years old, and I actually had a premonition of my grandmother's passing. And at that age, I didn't recognize that as an ability. I literally woke up in the middle of the night and just had this feeling, but it was also a knowingness. And it felt very much like a memory that hadn't happened yet. Mm. And as you can imagine, it was very confusing. And I went to share this feeling with my mom. And as I was sharing it with her, we got the news that my grandmother had passed via telephone. So that was the catalyst. But at that age, I didn't recognize it as an ability. It was just something that happened.
Once that started, were people visiting you a lot, or was it something that was more personal at that age, where had to be a family member or a loved one, or your world was smaller? Or were you like going into the classroom, turning to Johnny next to you and saying, your Aunt Sheila, she's about to, kick the bucket?
Not that far off. I found very quickly that there was some relationship between like daydreaming and sleep states as it relates to intuition and the subconscious. So I found that when I would be daydreaming in class, that's very often when intuition would kind of come in. I found that when I would walk the PE track with the other boys, and I'd be walking like a 30-minute mile, picking dandelions.
My kind of guy.
That would get me into this kind of state where I just wasn't really focused on much of anything. And that seemed to allow the subconscious to kind of come up. And that's where the information seemed to exist.
And did you talk to your parents about this? Did you feel like you had a gift, or did it feel like a curse? Or did you turn to your mom and say, I feel like people are around me, or people are giving me information all the time, and I don't know, my brain is noisy, or my subconscious, how do you express that as a little kid?
Exactly. It felt like having a lot going on and having a lot of impressions, and really at an early age having to discern between what is mine and what is others.
Uh-huh.
And I really think that having to learn that at an early age is a big part of why I've been able to maintain balance throughout, something that I think for most people would drive them nuts. But, my mom and I were very close, and I didn't share this part of myself with my dad until I was around 16. And my mom knew for 6 years and didn't tell him. And, it was very hard for my parents to keep secrets. My mom had an incredibly abusive childhood. The woman who raised her, and I use the term loosely, ended up serving over 30 years in prison for the murder of 2 people. And my mom has an incredible story of resilience, and then discovering as an adult that wasn't actually her mother, that she was taken as a child. So there were so many secrets and things that like I would bring up to my mom as a kid. And I brought through the initials once of a man who victimized my mother, and he apologized. And my mom just had tears in her eyes. And this was something my mother would have never shared with me. But as a kid, I'm looking at her telling her this, and it really blurred those lines between an adult role and the role of a child.
That is wild, Albert. Can
Wow.
you imagine?
No.
It was a lot,
No.
as you can guess. As if the medium side isn't complicated enough, a very strange family story.
Tyler, are you in any way Italian at all?
Yes,
You
we
are.
discovered this on the Netflix show. You might be psychic.
Okay, so let me just say, because we talk about this a lot, we're Italian, Albert and myself. And the first sign of anything like this, you are immediately taken to a priest. It is immediate.
Immediately.
The priest has to have some sort of I don't want to say an exorcism, but the priest has to talk you through it, and then reassure your parents that everything's fine. Did that happen to you a lot?
Well, my mom was raised Catholic. I was raised more Presbyterian, but I jumped around different churches. And, I dealt with a lot of really strong opposition as a child. I, at 10 years old, confided in a dear friend of mine of what I was experiencing. And she went and told her mom, who was very religious. And that woman went on to have a prayer circle for me as a little boy at a church that I had attended, and wasn't there when it happened, but heard about it. And that was really, really painful to have something that I felt to be so special and meaningful in my life, even though I didn't
to be
understand it.
vilified in some way.
Yes, for that very thing that for me gave my life a kind of early enrichment.
Are you able to turn it on and off? Can you, if you go, say, to a Broadway show, you're in New York, you go to see a show, can you, I'm just picturing,
You're at Sunset
we went
Boulevard.
to see Sunset Boulevard the other night, and
Yes.
I'm picturing us, and if I'm sitting there and people's relatives are theoretically tapping me in my inner brain or tapping my intuition, are you able to just say, guys, let's meet up at intermission, I need to focus here?
To be completely honest, I don't go to Broadway shows, and I wish I could. I really wish I could.
Too many people, too many spirits.
I mean, I would love to attend parties and go out with friends, and my life in many ways has been very restricted. I'm thankful that I'm an only child and am kind of used to beating to my own drum and doing my own thing, but social interaction is extremely draining. And there's always kind of another layer to every interaction that I could tap into and perhaps try to feel more of and relay. But when you magnify that by hundreds or thousands of people, it's really tough.
And is this us having a conversation? Is it exhausting for you right now? Are there people are there people
Swirling around, it's like Oda Mae
swirling
Brown.
around?
Can you imagine? That would be terrifying.
Any bats in my belfry that you want to tell me about?
Right behind, did you see that? No, I will say, there is always kind of that surface level presence. And then, I scribble, and scribbling is kind of how I turn on and so to speak, am able to kind of get in rapport with that other part of my mind that I normally am able to kind of keep on the back burner.
Mhm.
So, at some point throughout this, I'd love to scribble and see what comes through.
What if you're on an airplane? I mean, what happens to you on an airplane? Are you able to just put your earbuds in, put your mask on, take a Klonopin, and just dip out? Or are they just it's just happening?
It's very interesting in planes. People are kind of in a liminal state. They're in between two things. Literally, they're in the air. A lot of them don't have internet Wi-Fi connection. We're all just kind of sitting with ourselves. And that time frame does often, I had a lot of clients report messages from loved ones while on planes. And I've noticed things do come through. So I definitely, put those headphones in and try to take an Ambien and knock out. But a lady did think I was Macaulay Culkin the other day, I will say. Yeah, she was like, "Oh, I know you." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." She's like, "Do you get recognized a lot this time of year?" And I was like, "Oh, it's Halloween." I'm like, "Halloween's coming." Yeah. And she's like, "Macaulay, I love you." And I was like,
So when you communicate with people that passed, I'm very curious what it looks like for you. Do you see people? Is it a voice? Is it an image? Is it something only you can understand?
a lot of people think of it like the sixth sense, where they assume I see dead people walking around wearing clothing that they wore at their funeral. And that just simply is not the case for me. I really learned very early on that these were just kind of impressions, moments where information would come through, where my consciousness and someone else's consciousness seemed to kind of merge. I would have experiences where I could refer to memories that other people experienced that weren't my own, but I somehow knew them. And so it kind of reflects to me this interconnection between all things that I clearly don't understand, but works through this in a way that is so much more than just communicating with dead people. I really think it's more kind of the language of synchronicity and how the universe uses that to get us where we need to go.
And it's a very physical reaction that you have. I mean, you talked about being like, if you're in a crowd of people, you are exhausted. It is very draining. But you also, like, you sweat during some of the readings. It takes like a real physical toll. Can you tell me, like, after the fact, what does that feel like? It's a very physical reaction that you have. I mean, you talked about being like, if you're in a crowd of people, you are exhausted. It is very draining. But you also, like, you sweat during some of the readings. It takes like a real physical toll. Can you tell me, like, after the fact, what does that feel like?
Sure. In the process, it's very intense and I sweat and I find that my body temperature just really elevates. And then when I'm done, it very much feels like having exercised, or kind of akin to like if you were to solve a math problem without scratch paper and how that would feel. That kind of sense of, okay, I just know I ran through a bunch of like mental puzzles to try to get an answer and I got it. And there's a sense of closure to that. And then I can kind of go about my day. But it's very not as tangible as people think. It's not like there's dead people standing over me. I just have kind of created this inner world where I allow these things to kind of pop in at random.
What happens when you sit down with someone, particularly, now with your new Netflix show, when you sit down, say, with a celebrity, does it ever happen that no one comes through? That
It's why we have 5 other people sitting on the couch.
Mhm.
'Cause in
Just in
theory,
case.
it's very possible
Right.
that there won't be much for one person. And, I, as kind of a messenger, view my job as like a mailman in the sense that I don't write the letters. I just kind of deliver what's there. And sometimes people want to hear from mom and they end up hearing from mother-in-law.
Right.
And no control. I'm just like, look, those weren't my cookies. So kind of relay it as best you can, and it helps to have options.
Do you have to filter what you hear sometimes so as to not hurt someone's feelings?
That's like, to me, the most important aspect of it. I view what I do as a responsibility to extend what I feel through this structure that I've created over my life. But how I relay that is very much my responsibility and requires tact and diplomacy and consideration of how that's going to affect maybe not even just the person, but people outside of the room. So I very much, try to maintain the integrity of every experience. There's times where you got to talk about heavy things in order to, I think, find preparedness and resolve them.
I'm going to speak in generalizations now. When you speak to people that have passed, for the most part, were they? And I guess this is this is a stupid question, but I have to ask it. Are they annoyed? Are they angry? Like, were they is there ever a time where a person was fully ready to go, or do they always feel like they're still in a state of limbo, like there's unfinished things they had to say or do?
Sure. So, like, when we think about the continuity of life, the idea that it continues on there's always this kind of idea of unfinished business or like loose ends that need to be tied up. And I really stress self-awareness in my work. I encourage people to look at what I do and to like validate their loved ones while they're still here. Prevent future regret by saying it now. Do all these things to tie up those loose ends so that there's less to have to deal with later on. I, don't find that people come through in limbo as much as they seem to go through a process of self-reflection, introspection, and
You mean
that's
the dead people?
the departed. Yes, they seem to, as consciousness expands, much like a first grader is working at a very different level than a college graduate. As they continue to evolve, they seem to be aware of their impact or their lack of impact, what they did and didn't do throughout their lives, and have to come to a place of acceptance around that.
Jan, yes.
I have a question. So if someone passed with like a mental illness, right? When you communicate with them, is that gone or is that still exist? How does that play out once they've passed?
So it's such a good question because we think of our brain as being so responsible for how we kind of navigate life in the singular form. And it certainly does in many respects. Anyone who's ever undergone anesthesia knows that the brain is a very significant part of being able to interact. But what seems to be the case is when people come through who have struggled with perhaps Alzheimer's, dementia, mental health problems, sometimes even brain trauma, of which I actually also have from brain surgery, they all seem to kind of reflect that they are so much more than that singular perspective, almost as if, they're kind of looking through a window in life that's perhaps not the clearest. And from their perspective, they kind of show it being wiped clean. And that kind of symbolically seems to speak to some existence that works with the brain and through the brain, but also kind of separate from it. And we still seem to retain a sense of self.
So there's a knowing that this is how I was.
Right. And not necessarily how I am forever. There's this kind of idea of if we are an eternal being, by nature, there's going to be incarnations of experience that we're not limited to in the grand scheme, are part of the journey.
When did you have brain surgery? And I mean, am I allowed to ask these questions?
Oh, of course. So when I was 18 years old, I got a headache one day, and this headache went on to last for 3 weeks. And I knew on some intuitive level that something was wrong. And I tried to tell my mom, and at the time she was like, all right, drama queen, like, yeah, your brain's swollen, I bet. And I just had this headache and it was unlike anything else. I ended up getting rushed to the hospital thinking I was having a migraine on some level, and ended up being diagnosed with a brain cyst that was at the base of my brain. And it basically oriented itself in such a way where cerebral spinal fluid couldn't flow. So my brain started swelling, something called hydrocephalus. And it basically caused a number of instances of brain damage, and it took a while. Still, I struggle sometimes to kind of get words out. But I had a brain scan done by Dr. Drew, who actually wanted to see if anything was going on during readings. And he saw both the brain damage and some kind of strange activity in my brain when I would begin scribbling that kind of looked like I was going to sleep while I was awake. It was really baffling.
That is so fascinating. That is...
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And it's so funny
smart.
that you think that you don't articulate well, because I think you're the most articulate person we've ever had on the show.
Right, that's so sweet. Thank you.
So going back to the brain surgery, did you milk that for all it was worth with your mother?
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. My parents had a shrine set up for me.
Yeah.
When I came home, I was like, what's the big picture frame in my room with all the lights and the candles around it? And I'm like, were you writing me off before I was even thought? And I had yes, indeed, they were. They were like, you know what? We had to get it ready in case the community wanted to come pay homage. I was like, well, you could have taken the lights down before I got home. Like, blow out the candles. Come on.
Has there been a reading that you've given that has stood out to you more than all the others?
There are so many, which is a cliche answer, but I'll say there was a reading I did very early on in Hollywood Medium when we were reached out to by a woman who was middle-aged, in fact, earlier than that, and she had been recently diagnosed with terminal cancer. And her husband and she had been happily married, and she had a 7-year-old little boy, and she had watched Hollywood Medium and reached out for reading. And I agreed immediately to meet her, and I went to her house, and she swung open the door, and she had cleaned her house, and she was in the late stages of chemotherapy. And we had a conversation, and I brought through her grandparents and a number of family members, and they really communicated this idea that she needed to say everything whilst she still had the chance. And she took this message to heart in a way that makes the story memorable, because after our reading, she went on to actually record a video to be played at her funeral, acknowledging every single person that she knew would likely attend, which had to be very colorful and interesting.
Yeah, of course.
And she went on to create, a time capsule to be opened decades later for her friends and family to be able to kind of get to still know her in a different way years down the line. She filled out birthday cards for her 7-year-old little boy for every single birthday of his life until he was 40 years old, and she would have been long, gone. And so she made it a point to take that reading as an opportunity to just say it while she had the chance, so that death wasn't the end and that she was creating a living legacy. And I felt so humbled to be able to witness that.
And what a gift. That's such a gift that you gave her, so that she had this knowledge. Like, you know what? Because you don't know. I mean, you don't really know. None of us know what's going to happen. But it's nice to know that there are people like you that can translate for us the messages from our departed. Before you logged on, I don't mind telling you, we had the most bizarre conversation.
Tyler, brace yourself.
Tyler,
Love it. I like
Albert,
bizarre.
I feel like you need to come up in the.
Okay,
I feel
I'll
like
open.
Tyler needs to see you.
But Tyler, let's
Hi,
just
Tyler.
ask you a question.
Yeah.
Hi, Albert.
Do you like to know things beforehand? How
Oh,
does
yeah.
it work for you?
Generally not. Like, I like to just kind of scribble and see what pops in.
Maybe we should
But-
start that way. and
Should
then-
we start that way? Albert, do you want to begin? Because there
Go
are
ahead.
2 people here that came here specifically. And
Cool.
Albert, you are first. You are number 1.
Okay.
So go ahead.
And what
Yes.
am I revealing?
Well, Kelly, are you in the same room with Albert?
I'm right
Yeah,
next to him.
we're next to each other.
Okay. So for the purposes of the podcast,
Do you want me to move?
No, I like you where you are. I'm going to look and see where we kind of start, and we'll kind of go from there. Give me 1 sec. I'm gonna scribble. And being that there's a bunch of people, presumably there,
There's
At least-
5 of us here.
Yeah, 5 in the room.
anything could kind of come in. So give me 1 sec. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. We're talking like over 20 people at least.
Oh
And
my
that's a
gosh.
very strange estimate, but let me gauge this and the way this comes across. Kelly, I'm going to jump between back and forth.
Okay.
I have to acknowledge a couple different things. So, Albert, in your family, do you know of any situations, if I were to talk about a mother on mother's side of family, do you know much about mom's side?
Yeah.
Okay. When we talk about a grouping of sisters on your mom's side, do you know what I'm talking about there?
Yes.
Okay. Give me 1 second. The way this comes across, there's a number of like people that are coming through for both of you. So this is confusing.
I'm so sorry. Should I jump? Should I leave?
No, this is good. I have multiple people coming through for multiple people in the room with you. So it's kind of an interesting like mutual link. Let me figure this out.
There is. I have to tell you, Tyler. I'm just going to tell you one thing. There is
Sure.
a second Kelly here, so
Okay.
it could be the other Kelly.
The other Kelly.
There's-
Got it.
And she looks shockingly. Kelly, come over here. There's
Kelly,
another Kelly
Yeah,
who
I got
looks
another view. I
just
can
like
turn
this
around.
Kelly.
You can see her.
Yes. So I have to highlight, hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Strangely, for some reason, there's like one person coming through for 2 people
That's Jan.
connected. Hi, good
Hi.
to see you.
Roz.
Hello. So I'm going to scribble in the way this comes
Yeah,
across.
you
and
keep
we're gonna go-
scribbling, and then you tell us what happens.
So, Kelly, I want to go like the bulk. You don't really have much as far as recent stuff, but there's more of an emphasis on people like over 20 years ago, and a very strong emphasis on that department, and like people that have passed, kind of a ways. But I want to bring up. Let me go there. Marie D. Let me look there. And then random thing. This is going to sound strange, but they're having me talk about a situation of parents and people living together or having to be together
Yeah.
in some kind of capacity.
Yes.
This is going to sound weird, but I'm seeing like a harbor or like a place where water would be in some kind of larger capacity. So if someone ends up basically having to deal with a weather situation and we have to worry about oncoming weather, how that would affect the structure in some larger capacity. Separate from you, there's a Marie thing that comes in. So people I know Marie's like not the most unusual name, but it does pop
No,
in.
but it's very prominent in my
Albert-
family.
Albert's mom's side keeps hitting me over and over again.
You've got 2 Italian dysfunctional
Italian
families probably arguing with each other.
There's a lot happening. There's an acknowledgement and with all these people, please know it's kind of like I'm going to navigate as best I can. There's an acknowledgement of a trip to Europe, and not that unusual, but two places that I want to kind of hit up or go to. And this for me would look like this could be within the next like 6 months. But if people were recently discussing this, talking about it in the next year, like where are these two places in Europe that I'm going to visit? It just kind of keeps coming in, and that's good to keep in mind.
Does that ring true for you
Literally,
guys?
yes. No, it's both of us.
both of
Yes,
us.
yes, it's both of us, and yes.
Does anyone here have a living parent? So a living parent that is dealing with any eye problems or perception issues? And I don't want to put people's personal info out there, but I have to talk about living parent, perception issue. How do we discuss this? This kind of like going on and on and on. So not an easy resolve, and kind of a conversation around how do we care for caretakers? How do we let someone accept help? A whole thing, and that's just like keeps coming in. So
No, I don't. Neither. You're like, you literally are melding both of our scenarios.
Yes.
I believe it.
You don't even understand how you are melding both of
We're
ours.
going to go to Mexico now instead of Europe.
Yeah, I know. Maybe if we go to
Now we're
Mexico, we
switching.
can shake it.
We're switching our trip.
Yes, just don't get watch the water. Drink bottled water.
Water.
Let me look. There's
What do they say about getting through to a person that's having a perception issue? Are they giving any advice about it?
well, so the way that this comes across is like my symbol for pulling teeth, and that usually is indicative of some degree of a difficulty in someone giving up independence or accepting help that's necessary. So it's like everyone might agree, okay, this is all probably the best plan of action. How do we broach that with this person? How do we get them to relinquish some sense of perceived control?
So
Even if it's not-
how do we? What do they say?
Well, the feeling with this is it like pulling teeth, and then I keep saying acceptance is what it is what it is what it is. But there's a kind of, and please know how I mean this. There might be a little bit of like a shortness around it, a little bit of like, fresh, like kind of mean. Like there might be a meanness there of like, but it's just like when an animal's cornered and they feel like their security's threatened. It's that kind of thing. And then it's such a fine line because I still want to respect privacy and kind of have to speak in code.
Yeah,
So
no,
there's like a
I
lot.
understand. Yeah.
But that does come in as a situation that basically just feels like there's a lot of grace in the way this comes through. There's no wrong way to handle this on your end. So just know that in the way this comes through, very much just sort of affirmation. It is good to keep in mind with men in the family. Remember that I'm saying this. There's going to be something that comes up around stomach related issues, something that seems kind of similar to like Crohn's symptoms. But it almost looks like this could affect esophageal and kind of lower. So just remember that I'm saying that.
Okay.
It might not ring a bell right now, but
Okay.
just as like sons get older,
Yeah.
keeping that in mind.
I feel like your family and my family are totally.
Yeah, they're in the same room
They're
right
in the
now.
same room.
And they're all talking over each other.
Exactly.
There's a reference also to like a number, of course, like Michael's a common name. But when we talk about this, remember that I'm saying the transition between like an Americanized version of a name versus kind of the original form of a name.
Mhm.
That does come in. There is like a Marie emphasis, but that I think will probably apply to multiple people in the room. So just keep this in mind that will perhaps connect in that realm. There's an acknowledgement. Check and see if anybody owned a grocery store within family. This would actually be for someone in the room. So if someone like had any grocers in the family or anybody who worked at like a fish market, I'm very much getting that kind of like feeling.
Anybody?
Just something to look into. It's the only thing that's like hitting me kind of peripherally, but it does keep coming in. So, some of these things, like I said, they'll land immediately, and then others we have to kind of look into. But by and large, I mean, you have such a big life that I think you've taken on so many people who just kind of like follow your journey and live vicariously through what you do. So you're one of the really interesting cases where you have more friends than family that even come in. It's almost like you've accumulated people, and they like get a lot of joy through your joy. So please know that.
Oh,
True.
That's nice. That's very nice. That's
True.
Yep, it is
That's
true.
a nice thing to know. I mean,
That is
and,
you to a T.
Yeah.
and you don't even. It's very, everything you said is tracking very accurately. So much.
Let me tell you, I'm always here. Albert, Kelly, everybody on your team. If you ever need anything, readings, please never hesitate to
You're
reach out.
Do you want to ask
Yeah, now we
about?
should-
No, this is now
No, I
Albert,
feel
you
like you
should.
should ask because,
So,
and
Tyler-
I did come up.
So
Ron's
but
eye.
this is not a. But this is a yes. So my dad passed away in February.
Okay.
And my when Jan suggested that we each bring something to the room, she said, "Why don't you bring something from your dad?" This is when I told you things went a little haywire. So I said, "Well, my aunt," which is why when you brought up my mother's family with sisters, that's my mom's sister. My aunt who passed away years ago, she was just the most incredible woman. She had a dog that she loved, and she had the dog's ashes. And my sister was like, "What are we doing with these ashes?" And this was the same day that Jan called me and said, "Bring something." So I said, maybe Tyler could connect with Aunt Pat and tell me what she would like done with the ashes. So the ashes are here next to me. But then the other ridiculous side of this is that my sister, upon getting the ashes, said,
This is where the eye comes in.
This is where the eye comes in. Said, because my dad had a fake eye, said, "Here, I'm giving you this. Tell Tyler that this eye looked at where the title was to the Lexus and we can't find it."
Weird. It's like the well is in the wall. Like,
Exactly right. Yeah. And if he has any idea where the title is.
That is hilarious. Albert, what's your last name?
Bianchini.
Okay, so I just wrote AB right here. And so the reason why I ask is that now if we talk about this guy, it's interesting that you mentioned earlier an Ron name.
Yeah.
And when you said that, and I'm sorry because there's been a lot of conversations, that like pinged for me, and I had to talk about this guy, and there's this feeling of my laugh carrying. So like if I want to make fun of how like someone's loudness when they laugh, there's kind of a funniness around this, and it just comes through so like warm. And just remember saying this: if anybody ends up having a managerial role or being able to help and kind of take on someone's affairs in some way. It comes through as positive. I have to joke about 10% and percentages and things. It's just very random. Comes in by and large. So, but very like cool. it comes across. I don't see anything about where to put her names. Sorry,
he's not telling. He's not showing you with the eye.
The only reason they're here is because Jan forced me to bring the items with me.
Yeah, no, it's going on the hearth. I'm sorry.
It's going on the hearth. Exactly right.
It's put in the vase.
Yes. Thank you, Tyler.
Now switch places.
Here, I'll give her the here. Take this.
Okay.
Take that over there for Kelly.
So this is Kelly Burkhart. This is the booker on our show.
She's the talent booker on our show.
Oh, Kelly, thank you for everything.
I'm bugging out. You are wow.
All right, Kelly, let's look and see there. Kelly. Mutual. Yeah. That Ron guy keeps coming in, by the way, and connects to two people. Again, it's kind of weird, like two people in the room with you more than just one. It's very interesting. So let me try to focus on Kelly. Kelly, what state are you from?
New York.
New York. Okay, very cool. It just gives me something to focus on. Let me look there. Oh, Kelly, this is just kind of good to keep in mind. There is kind of an interesting dichotomy. I have some super old people and then people who kind of passed away in that middle range. So let me kind of figure this out. It wouldn't surprise me if you go back and you look at like longevity in past generations, that there were people who lived into their 80s in a time when like medical advancements were not as good as they are now. Ironically, if we look up closer to generations kind of closer to you, they're having me talk about passings that are kind of more middle-aged or a little bit younger. So I have this kind of interesting dichotomy of generations back living longer than some of the people that are closer to us who've passed kind of more in that like middle range. And I have to highlight, and this is just good to keep in mind, do you know of any situations where anyone dealt with any long-term fluid problems that would have in any way focused on like breathing, chest? I feel kind of emphysemic or like asthmatic. I feel like I'm having difficulty inhaling fully and exhaling fully. I don't know why. It may not be who we're anticipating to hear from or hoping to, but does anything ring a bell with any lung problems?
I mean, my grandmother had. Now I'm like, I'm so nervous.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous.
Congestive heart failure.
Okay.
My mother has asthma bad, but she's living.
I have to highlight fluidity in chest breathing, and very often, and I'm not trying to make a circle for the square, but with congestive heart failure, they always say the heart and lungs are married, and I feel fluidity here in the way this kind of comes through. There might end up having been a story, and this is just good to look into, where someone raises a child. This is going to be like off the wall and good to look into with family history, but a situation where someone kind of raises a child in a way that's different than a mother raising their child, almost like if a sister raises their sister, or if a grandmother raises a granddaughter. There's very much this kind of feeling that comes in.
And
It's
my
historic.
grandmother raised her brothers and sisters, and there were 7 of them.
Got it. I kind of wonder if when you go back and perhaps look at, they're highlighting a significance on these 4. And so sometimes you can even read like if there's 4 girls or 4 that would be like connected more to one and separate. And we call it psychic math. There's usually like an emphasis that they're bringing up on that side, but that's for sure where I'm going. And then do you know, that's kind of strange. We talk about men. Do you know any men who've passed by middle age by chance?
Yes.
I got this guy coming in, but there's kind of a rough, like a, I don't know how to articulate this, like a heaviness to this.
Yep. Very.
Heaviness. Remember that I'm saying this, there might end up being with this guy. So this is going to sound strange, but you know when sports teams go and win and like go to the World Series or whatever, this is strange. I'm having to talk about the team making it and for some like living vicariously, almost like if I wasn't able to watch a game or watch a team win, but then they go on to win after I pass, there's something weird about that comes through. But I'm very loyal to my team thing in the way this comes in. I don't know what this is, but it keeps popping through. If you were to pick anybody, who would you have wanted to hear from the most?
I guess Mark.
I have to highlight this younger situation, male. Feels like a brick wall is the only way to really describe it. There's an acknowledgments around my symbol generally indicative of like being more popular than I realize after I pass. So there's this feeling of people having an overwhelming response. You know that like old adage of like, oh, the fire marshal, we had to like call him because there were too many people. There's kind of like a funniness with this of like, all these responses. There's some acknowledgement. This is just good to keep in mind. I don't know what in the world this is, but if there ends up being some connection to like a bridge, I keep seeing this. And you know, like those marathons that people do, like triathletes or people who are like getting ready to do marathons, people running. It's very East Coast, but it does come in, and I just don't know where to place it. But it's a symbol that I keep seeing. And then when we talk about Mark, where's the other M names in his family? Do we know of any?
Oh, yeah. His last name was Moses.
Oh, okay. So could be referencing in that department. But then I have to highlight, this is going to sound kind of strange. You're going to end up getting a picture of an animal like that's made for you. That's going to end up being dedicated to an animal, and it's going to sit. And there's this feeling of like dual honor in some way. And it's going to happen. So it's like, it's usually indicative of like if someone makes a painting of a pet or gives someone like an image that's sentimental, and we do a dual honor there. Just keeps coming in and I see it.
Love that.
We were also talking about how heavy that box was just before he got on.
We were talking about the heaviness
of the box.
But it was heavy, but he was...
I know he was heavy,
No,
but
we
we
know
were
he was
just
heavy,
talking
but we were
before
talking
Tyler
about-
came on. We talked about
Before
how
he
heavy
came
the
on,
box was.
So Kelly's husband Mark passed away. We haven't seen him in a while, and Kelly has been keeping his ashes in a
Cooler.
portable cooler, like you would keep wine coolers in a portable cooler.
Got
And
it.
she brought them out tonight, and we unboxed them. We did an unboxing
First
right
time.
here before you logged on. And when I picked him up and sat him on the desk, he was heavy. He was super heavy. So when you were like, I feel a heaviness, I was like, no kidding.
It's wild.
But I think that you're the team he roots for. That's how I interpret that.
Just so you know, when we talk about him, he has him, his people, and then you have your own biological family. And they actually make a not surprising, but a very large presence as well. So I'm actually inclined to apply a lot to them, like looking into bio family. He kind of comes in and out, in and out. But all good. All good. Yeah.
That's us all tracking.
Yep.
But please know, I would love to privately, continue that conversation and knowing that he's who we really want to hear from. I would love to see if we
Thank
can
you.
more clearly. But there's always kind of opportunities, I think, to look into certain things, and it's really, I think, about the meaning we find through these moments.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
This
course,
is
thank
really,
you.
this is, I don't know. I mean, barring the fact that we still don't know where the Lexus title is, I have to say that this has been
Lexus title.
this has been very productive.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
Such a gift.
We're so honored. I don't want to drain you too much of your superpowers.
Tyler,
Thank you.
you're such a pleasure.
I
Thank you.
literally tried not to get involved. I was like, I'm not bringing anything in because I'm just going to sit quietly because there have been recent passings.
There's a
and
dog in the room.
There's a dog in the room, and Ron's eye is here, and I'm going to sit quietly. And of course, my mouthy relatives, they cannot be unheard. They will not be ignored.
And Albert's.
Right.
There is that between the
You
two.
were like, is there a Marie? I'm like, well, there's 30 Maries that have
40 Maries,
between the two of us.
It's Italy.
Yeah, exactly.
Tyler, do you do things on your own to help recharge outside of this? Like, what are your routines to refill the battery without? Yeah.
Between coffee and between sleep, it's really kind of a balance between both. And I spend so much time sleeping. It's so boring, let me tell you. It's like the only interesting part about me is what I do.
No, but
when
it's
I'm not
probably it's probably the only time you get peace.
Yeah, it's definitely like going into the subconscious realms that I normally navigate, but in a restorative way.
How are your dreams?
Yeah, you know, when I don't work, my dreams start getting very constipated. And I use that phrasing because it starts building up. I very rarely now recollect my dreams. But when I don't work, my dream recall increases and I start having people coming through and bothering me and not going away. So I actually find I can blow off that steam by doing work in an organized way. And then as long as I give them that part, they kind of leave me alone at night, usually.
We hope you sleep well tonight.
Yes.
Oh, Tyler, this has been a true pleasure. Thank you so much. This has been like a blessing for all of us.
All of us.
Be sure to watch Live from the Other Side Tuesdays at 6 p.m. on Netflix and check out Tyler's website for upcoming tour dates. Also, don't forget to check out Tyler's books, Here and Hereafter and Between Two Worlds. Gosh, you really made this a fascinating podcast, and we are so grateful.
Kelly, Albert, everybody, thank you for being here. And I look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you.
We'll follow up where we left off.
Definitely.
Thank you, Tyler.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye, Tyler.
Bye.
Bye.
Sleep well tonight.
I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow. That was great. Aren't you
I
happy you
love
came?
it. Yeah.
Well,
Thanks for bringing your show and tell everybody.
At least you made him laugh.
so
It
many,
was such a good,
so many actors.
just for us.
The eye.
The
The eye was.
We'll never know where that title is.
He couldn't find the title. I think the eye only works if it's in the head. Burkhard,
to
it's
say
your,
the
you
line.
get to,
Sign
you're
us off.
going to sign off. You say the final line.
Lean into the microphone.
Lean into the mic and use your sexy voice.
Bye, everyone. Can't wait to talk to you off camera next week.
Just leave it.
Talk you off camera. Let's Talk Off Camera with Kelly Ripa is a production of Melojo Productions with help from Goat Rodeo. Our theme song is Follow Me from APM Music. From Melojo, our team is Kelly Ripa, Mark Consuelos, Albert Bianchini, Jan Chalet, Devin Schneider, Michael Halpern, Jacob Small, Roz Therian, Seth Gronquist, and Julia Desch. From Goat Rodeo, our team is Kara Schillen, Megan Nadolski, Max Johnston, Isabel Kirby McGowan, and Rebecca Seidel. Additional sound design by Terrence Bernardo. This show is powered by Stitcher.